our guest today is Brent Metcalf. Brent was a 4-time Michigan State champion, 2-time NCAA champion for the University of Iowa, and current assistant coach at Iowa State University. Brent, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
We're excited to talk to you, buddy. So real quick, I guess first, how have you been this past summer? What have you been doing to keep busy lately?
Oh man, I don't know. The deal is that I got 3 kids. So during this pandemic, it became a lot of dad time for sure. Yeah. I feel like, trying to just find things to keep myself busy. From a college coach and my job's point of view, there wasn't really a whole lot that we could do. We can't recruit. We can't, obviously, a lot of times we'd be on the road, we'd be watching wrestling, we'd be in kids' houses by now, visiting them. You'd be visiting their clubs and, trying to find new prospects, and none of that could happen. So it kind of forces just to be here, and we can't run practice. We can't, do anything. So for me, it was really good. It was a lot of time that I got to spend with my family, and just kind of get odds and ends done around the house, I suppose. And then obviously, get my ducks in a row, and, the recruiting still has to happen, even though it's happening over Zoom calls, and different through technology now, right? Which is good. It helps us kind of grow and adapt as coaches as well.
Yeah. I love that answer. I read an article not that long ago, Coach, about how the kids, even though it may be, hard or trying times for us as adults, trying to find things to do for them, that this was an article written by World War II kids saying how it's one of the greatest times that they remember because they got to spend so much time with the families,
Mm-hmm.
Mom and dad get to do, adventures that they probably would have never been able to typically do during these kind of summers. So
yeah, no doubt. I mean, my wife stays home, so she's always with them, and just, I feel like I'm around quite a bit, but obviously every day being there for every breakfast and the consistency throughout however many months we are on now. I don't know. It feels like it's been a whole year, but I don't think it's been that long. But so yeah, no doubt. And I love it too. That's one of the things that's hardest for me when I'm traveling is, knowing that you're starting to miss things. And my oldest is 7, so they're starting to get into sports and things where you're not just missing diapers, you're missing important events. So those are things that are important to me,
Sure. How old are the other kids, Brent? 7, and then what are the others?
I've got 3 boys. I got a 7, a 5, and a 3-year-old. Okay. And then I have a baby girl actually coming on the 23rd of this month.
Awesome. Congratulations.
So she wasn't a quarantine baby. It happened before that. But I'm actually sitting in the baby's room right now, so if you see a bunch of pink stuff on the walls, it's because that's where I'm at.
I just feel sorry for the poor boy that's going to ask her to prom someday, with 3 older brothers and Mr. Metcalf as a dad. So
yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I've never been much of I've got a younger sister, and I wasn't much of a crazy older brother, but I imagine that the 3 brothers here, they're definitely crazy. So I'm sure that's going to be entertaining to watch and watch more grow up. Who knows? Who knows?
All right. So, I hate asking this question, but we're still in the times, right? So with the COVID this past summer, how have you been getting your guys ready, prepping for this upcoming season?
Yeah. So as far as our rules and what we're allowed to do, we're not allowed to do much of anything. So all summer, basically, we can have correspondence with our guys. We can talk to them about, if they said, hey, coach, can you help me with a plan? I can help them with a plan, but I can't call them and say, hey, guys, here's a plan. You have to do this. So everything was on their own. They had to, mat workouts, things like that. They can call me and they can say, hey, coach, how's this looking? In fact, some of our guys, actually, I had a point where they were sending me video like, hey, coach, I'm working on this hold. And then they would send me the video and I would look at it. And then I actually had my 7-year-old, I had my wife film it. And then I would be like, not correcting, but I'd be showing the technique like, okay, that looked good, but make sure your hand's doing this. And I'm doing it on my 7-year-old who, he's falling over and crying and stuff. So that's kind of how it's been, which is good. We talked about, just kind of find a way to make it work. But it's been tough. It's been tough, but I feel really good about our guys, about kind of the ownership they took of this summer. And I know a lot of really good work got done. So we're definitely excited. We're going to be starting here in about another week where we'll hopefully be, in our room training and, getting the season going. So
that leads a little bit into my next question. We heard yesterday that Iowa State is not going to allow fans in their football game this Saturday against Louisiana Lafayette.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously that's a bummer to hear. What are your thoughts on how those types of things could end up affecting the upcoming wrestling season?
Oh, I don't know if I'm in a position to make any sort of predictions or anything like that, but my gut, how about that? And this isn't any educated at all, but my gut tells me that football playing is really important for the wrestling season, I would think.
Sure.
That I just have to, just how it feels. It feels like it's really important. So I'm actually, regardless of what they ended up doing, where they cut the attendance, I think the fact that they're still trying to find a way to move forward with football is good for the athletes in our university. I'm glad that they're kind of sticking to it and trying to make it work, because as we know, or as you can probably imagine, that without football, there's going to be an effect that goes down the line, So we've got soccer going, we've got volleyball going. None will have fans, but they're operating. They're going, they're practicing, and they've got meets or competitions. I'm not sure what they call soccer. Matches, maybe. Matches, soccer match. They're going, they're happening, So all that to me is good, because, 3 months ago, there's probably a lot of uncertainty whether any of that would be happening, So when you think about wrestling season, I think that all those things have to happen. I got to think that we need to have them go. So
let's take it all the way to the beginning, Coach. You grew up in, was it Flint, Michigan?
Yeah, just outside of Flint, Michigan. Flint's the area code. How about that?
I will take that. I know where Flint's at.
Davison, Michigan. Yep.
Yes. Okay. That's where you went to high school. How'd you get your start in wrestling, and when did you start wrestling?
Started when I was 8 years old, and how I started wrestling was legit. I found a flyer laying on the ground, picked it up. It had a cool picture on it. So I was a kid. I did all sorts of sports. I did, name the sport. I probably did it outside of basketball. And I found a flyer and it had a cool picture. I knew nothing. My family didn't do wrestling. It was just dumb luck that the community that I lived in had a really, really good wrestling club. In fact, that club had, between myself, that club that I happened to walk into had 3 individual NCAA champions in it. So
wow.
That's just ironic. It's just irony, Then I had to pick up a flyer and walk in and say, "Hey, let me try whatever this is." So
who were the other? It was Reeder, right?
Johnny Reeder and Paul Donahoe.
Okay.
Yep. So we all ended up being teammates, obviously. So that was actually Goodrich is where that was, which is about less than 10 minutes away. Long and short story is, we all ended up moving to Davison when one of the coaches at Goodrich took the head job there. So we all kind of followed him to Davison. So.
Yeah. When Jay first, I knew you went to Davison High School. When Jay mentioned Flint, the first thing I thought of was the Flint Tropics from the movie Semi-Pro.
Yeah, heck yeah. And the IMA is a real thing, by the way.
Is it? Okay.
Oh, yeah, the Flint IMA. Yeah. I don't think they call it that anymore, but when I was a kid, it was the IMA.
Wow.
So it's actually like a hockey arena is what I graduated. My high school graduation was in it. So
okay.
I think it's something different now, though. I don't think it's called the IMA anymore.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think they had a youth tournament out there.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
But you'd think as a hockey arena, it'd be cool. No, it was hotter in Hades. It was during the middle of summer, and oh my God, it was so hot.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
If Jay gets out of line, we'll call him a jive turkey and see how
jive turkey. Yeah. I love Will Ferrell. I tell you what, he's one of my favorite actors in the entire world. Every single one of his movies is just awesome. And they're like the same movie. I tell my wife all the time, I'm like, he does like the same skit with just different words, every movie, and it's still hilarious. It doesn't matter.
So did wrestling come naturally to you, or was it like a progression through your first couple of years?
I would get it came pretty natural. I think by my third year of wrestling, I was winning like the state kids tournaments and things like that. So in my first year I was third, my second year I didn't place, and then my third year I won, and then I was winning after that. So I'd say it came pretty natural. I'm not sure why or what, but it definitely clicked. I remember within 2 weeks of doing it, I didn't care about anything else. That was it. My brother, actually, he was playing basketball at the time, which is kind of a joke because he's like, he was like this high on me, so he's shorter than I was. He quit instantly, and he came out, and we kind of did that together. So,
gotcha. Very cool.
Yeah.
So Brent, you have just a crazy, in your face, high pace, very aggressive style wrestling style. It almost reminded me of the Brands brothers when they used to wrestle. Really, oxygen tank, keep going. Who did you model your style of wrestling after?
Well, it probably was Tom and Terry Brands. These are different day and ages when I grew up, which is probably back when y'all grew up too. Is that there wasn't YouTube. There wasn't. All you had was whatever material your high school coach put in front of you. So I was lucky to have a coach that laid like unbelievable foundation for me. As far as mentality and approach to the sport and technique. And he kind of always pointed to, I've told the story a couple of times where, when I first started working with this coach, his name's Roy Hall, he put in a video with Tom and Terry Brands. And he said, "You guys want to win? Yeah. Wrestle like that." And that was day one, and that's all I ever knew. I didn't know who Gable was. I didn't even know who Iowa was. Like none of that meant anything. I didn't even know who the people necessarily were on the screen per se. I just was told by my coach, wrestle like this. You see, you go out of bounds, run back to the center. You see that? Run back to the center. And it was just something, it was a philosophy that he held with our entire program. It wasn't just myself and my brother. It was our program wrestled that way. And we had a ton of success doing that too. So yeah, I mean, it's a combo. I mean, ultimately, I didn't even know it, but I guess I was kind of raised with an Iowa style, but we always called it Roy Hall style.
So, Brent, we talked a little bit about some of your teammates, through high school. We wanted to ask you if you could tell us a little bit about your high school career. I know you went 228-0, which has got to be, is that a Michigan record? I'm pretty sure it's.
It's actually not.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's not. The last I heard, there's a kid named Zurup. I think he went to Michigan.
Okay.
So he was 240 something maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. Some of these kids, I'm not ripping the kid, but some of these kids, I can't believe how many damn matches they're able to get in, because I remember when I was wrestling, that seemed like a lot. But so yeah, that record has been broken. But I don't know, as far as in Michigan, we have 3 divisions. So as you can imagine, we have 4 divisions. So you can imagine, just like in Iowa, there's a pecking order, right?
Yeah.
So I was in the big school division, and the dude that broke it was in the smallest school division. So you can imagine how they would treat that guy in Iowa, right? And that don't count, dude. You got to do it in the big schools, all right? So I guess if I was looking at him right now, I'd tell him his record don't count.
Sure. Well, yeah. So I know, Cale Happel, for example, 4-time state super stud. He was 1A, and that probably did help his record, I'm going to guess. But I think he probably would have beat every 130. Is he 132 this year in the state, regardless of class?
Well, especially, I think Iowa's unique too because, they're able to actually leave the state and wrestle.
Sure.
I think you're bound by you have to be within the state lines or something, right? You got to be connected.
Yeah.
We had like a 150-mile rule, which means we couldn't leave the state. The only tournament we could go to, we went down to the Medina tournament, and we could do that once a year. But everyone had to be from Ohio. So that was always our only test. So we always had like one hard test, and then the rest of it, you're just wrestling Michigan guys, So yeah. But yeah, no doubt. I think for sure, especially when it comes from those bigger programs, the better programs are going to wrestle against the other better programs, regardless of divisions. They're going to match up dual meets and things like that. So,
sure. 4-time state champ. We already mentioned that, but what was the feeling after capping off your 4th state title with a perfect record? You wrapped it up. I'm sure that was a mission you had throughout your career. Maybe we've heard from different people that it was like, oh my gosh, like kind of a relief almost. Just wondering what you remember from feeling at that time.
Well, I'm old now, so I'm not that old, but in all honesty, I was probably a little sick in the head, and by that I mean most times that I won, I think I always was looking to what's next. So yeah, I think that. Certainly, I mean, my memory, I'm sure that there was some relief to it. And I don't know if that's the right word even. Relief isn't the word because I don't necessarily believe in the pressure, I think you set an expectation for yourself. And when you expect yourself to do something, there's no pressure in that. It's like you're chasing something, But to me, it was always, what can I do next? I think that during that year, I went wrestling in like a college open tournament, and I'd won that college open tournament. So I was already getting wired like, okay, when am I going to get my opportunity to show how good I am at the college level? Because obviously as a senior, you're committed somewhere and you're starting to think that way. So I'm sure that it was great and all, but I don't remember definitely, not the happiest moment of my life or anything like that. It's like, you're just checking boxes. You're checking boxes because as soon as you check it, you already got a list of 3 or 4 more that are the next in line, and whether that's good or bad, I don't know, but it worked for me. It helped me operate. It helped me continue to grow, at least mentally as a wrestler and not ever kind of settle and think like, oh, where I'm at now is like, I'm great. I was always kind of criticizing myself a little bit. Not if that makes any sense, where there's always more I could do. There's always more I could do. I always kind of joke with my guys and when I do clinics and things, but I really mean it, is every match, every time I step on the mat, I want a tech fall pin. And not either or, I wanted both. So I wanted to rack up a tech fall and pin you as I was getting those back points. And I wanted that every single time. So regardless of how the outcome happened, without that, there was a little, again, I'm kind of sick, but there's a little disappointment, because I'm off the mat and I'm like, all right, I could have done more. I only got a major, I could have done more. How could I have done more? So that's kind of what was always running through my head and what drove me, Yeah. So it probably drive a lot of guys crazy actually, but for me it worked.
So Brent, can you tell us about the first time you met Tom Brands or any of the recruiters over there? And at what point did you go back to the family and say, hey, we're going east to Virginia Tech,
Yeah. Probably, I mean, again, I don't remember what month it was or anything like that, but whenever coaches could come through, I had a ton of coaches come through. I got it narrowed down to top 5. And I would say probably right away. I think right away, the minute he walked in the door first time, I knew, whether that was because I already kind of had it in me a little bit, again, being raised kind of on that philosophy, or whether it was that he just got me, excited and motivated. but I was different, so it was a weird thing because my brother went to Michigan. I had a great relationship with the Michigan coaches. Josh Trella was one of my, outside of my actual best friend group, one of my really, really good friends. And we trained together every summer. I would actually go down there and I would train with him and his brothers in that Michigan group. So it kind of made sense that I would just go to Michigan, and for no good reason. I mean, in all honesty, no good reason. I just had my mind set that I wasn't going to go to Michigan. I was like, I'm just going to do something different. I don't know why. There wasn't there was a lot of great reasons to go, but I just had it in my head. I was like, I'm going to leave the state. I'm going to go just try something different, go get out of my comfort zone. So yeah, I guess right away, it's funny. You ask him and he thought that he had no chance in hell. So, recruiting's a funny game. You never know.
So your first year out of high school, you took your red shirt at Virginia Tech. And then the following year, Tom was returning back to Iowa to become the head coach.
Yeah.
We talked with Jay Borschel, who went through that with you. You guys were teammates. In regards to following Tom back to Iowa, he said there was no thought process. He's like, "Oh, he's going. Yep, I'm going too." Was curious about, was that the same situation for you, knowing that you might end up losing a year of eligibility in the process? Was it a no-brainer you're headed to Iowa City?
Yeah, it was a no-brainer. I've obviously been asked a lot about this whole situation, and a lot of times I'm like, well, did they talk to you about? It's the funniest thing. I mean, first off, you got to think, he had brought in the number one recruiting class to Virginia Tech, who, as far as I was concerned, didn't even have a wrestling program. Yeah. I remember when I went there, I'm like, I don't know anything about these guys, but we're gonna kill it. Let's go. So yeah, the minute he left, it was just, and I imagine for those Iowa guys especially, because it would have been going back home for them. Because if they wouldn't have gone to Virginia Tech, they probably would have went to Iowa, right? But yeah, I don't know. I don't even think there's even a question. I never had a coach, that'd be Tom or Doug or anybody at the time come up and say, "Hey, are you coming?" or anything like that. It was just, we were, But I'm going to guess there was 5 of us. I'm going to guess it was kind of like just a thing. You know what I mean? And we were tight. We were a really tight-knit group of buddies that it wasn't even spoken between us, I don't think. I think it was just like, we're going. That's just, And I don't know how they felt. I don't know if you asked Jay about whether he thought he would lose the year eligibility or not. I don't know if I'm pessimistic or not, but I just assumed, I didn't have any real hope. I knew when we were doing it, I was like, that we'd had a suit against Virginia Tech. And I remember looking at it, and it was all of our names versus the state of Virginia. And I'm like, we're not beating the state of Virginia in anything. They're going to win this case. So yeah, I don't know. Looking back, you kind of scratch your head and be like, man, you just gave up your year eligibility, just took off. But yeah, it was that easy. Just went and did it.
So you walk into, I don't think it was named then yet, but the Dan Gable complex, right? The wrestling room of Iowa. Mm-hmm. Kind of like when you went to West Virginia, Iowa was starting to kind of take a downward slide at that point in time before you guys all came back into the room. How did you bring the fire back, or how did you bring that Iowa mentality back to the wrestling room to get us back on top and one of the top programs again?
I'm not gonna say I did it, but I think again, there's a lot of things. We were, and that I gotta guess that group from Virginia Tech was huge because we were super tight. Okay, and then it just was a perfect mesh because all these kids were local Iowa kids, right? So I was actually kind of the outsider to an extent. And then when they came there, it was with all these other Iowa kids who were also a bunch of stars, right? So it was like the perfect meshing. So there was no ego or conflict. Or there was never a feeling of because I'm just imagining a scenario now. Imagine if when we took the job at Iowa State here, if Dresser shows up with 5 of his best guys, there's going to be drama. Right? Because guys are going to start losing spots. And it wasn't like that. It was just there's instant cohesiveness. and we're all tight. And there were some challenges that needed to be met. And by that, I mean, maybe some of the older senior guys who were used to operating a certain way. And that wasn't going to happen anymore, and not that we're straight and narrow, but like, this is the new expectation. This is how we're going to operate. And it helped that we as a group, and by that I mean the class that came in and the class that was already there, I think it helped that we all just really got along and we're all on the same page. I mean, whether it was social or training, it was like everything was done together, and I think especially being a coach now, when you have a group like that, they can rise together really, really easily isn't the word, but really easily, because they're all holding each other accountable. And that's really what ended up happening is you're in an environment where I'd step on the mat and I go and get a tech fall. My best buddy is the next guy up, and not just my teammate who's a dude who lives on the other side of town. No, the guy that I live with and who's my best friend, he's the next guy up. So what's he expected to do? Go try to one-up me, right? Yeah. Go get a tech ball or a pin, So there's that inner competition there a little bit where you're back at night and you're dogging each other. And you say, what the heck, man? You only won by a point, So I think that naturally when you're friends, and there's respect there, naturally drives each other up. And there was, out of 10, at least 6 to 7 that were just tight. And we had that sort of relationship. And I think it really, really helped us grow and get there fast.
So you finished your collegiate career in just 3 years with two NCAA titles, 108-3 record. Phenomenal career. Again, in just 3 years of actually being able to compete. When did you start thinking about what you were going to do next? I know you had a pretty long international career post college as well. Was that always kind of in the plans? Was that like the next boxes you were going to check, or how did that come through, I guess, in your planning?
Yeah, I mean, so you ask when I win 4 state titles, what is the thing I'm thinking about? I'm thinking about being an NCAA champion, but I'm thinking about being an Olympic champion too. And I know that there's time before I get there, but I know that me winning 4 state titles is insignificant to the ultimate goal. So even at that point, I'm thinking about being an Olympic champion. So was it in the plans? Heck yeah, it was in the plans every single year after. And even sometimes I fought Tom on this. As far as philosophy-wise, a lot of times I think he wanted me taking a break after the season. And I was like, no, I got to go compete. I have to go and wrestle against these guys. I got to continue to see where I'm at, because it took me up until 2010 before I made a world team. So as far as I was concerned, like if I didn't ever do any of that, if I didn't wrestle any of these guys doing this senior level stuff during college, in theory, my first shot at 2010, I don't know if I'm winning then. I don't know if I have the experience or the belief in myself that I can go and do that and beat these guys, So taking a lump and getting a little closer to them next time, all those things were part of the process. So yes, to answer your question, yes, I was thinking about being an Olympic champion even while I was wrestling in college.
Sure.
It was all. I mean, there's a way to balance it too. You can't be. I think part of 2009, one of the things that hurt me was I was too focused on trying to be the world champion, and I thought I'm going to win the nationals. Let me focus on this, right? And then you kind of, not excuses or anything like that, but you forget that the focus needs to be what is ahead of you and not, something that's up in the clouds.
So one quick side note I wanted to ask. So Doug Schwab was at Virginia Tech with you guys.
Yeah.
He came back to Iowa as well.
Yep.
He did, obviously he ended up making Olympic team and stuff later on as well. Did you guys, I know he mentioned, we interviewed him a couple of weeks ago, and he mentioned that at least one time you were in the same bracket as him. Did you guys ever wrestle in like freestyle?
Oh yeah. We wrestled, definitely twice, maybe 3 times.
Okay.
So that was, hell, we were in the same bracket. We were in the same, it was the weirdest thing ever. we were for Gator Wrestling Club, and they put us in the same hotel room. So him and I were rooming together, and then we're wrestling each other the next day. But he was my assistant coach too. There's a lot of weird dynamics with it. It was great. Doug was so great with that. He was still a great coach to me when in reality we were also competitors too, So he could have not handled that well, but he was always really great. But yeah, I mean, that was huge for me in my career. Imagine having a guy that was Olympian who I get to work out with every single day. And that's what I'm striving for. That's what I want,
Now's probably where Rob's going to have to edit this because I'm going to screw this up. I guarantee it. But
it's the Urigan.
Urigan. Yeah, Urigan. Yeah.
You're going to say it right, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So 2011, 2013, 2015, you placed out there. What was it like going over there to wrestle? And I mean, like the atmosphere, the auditorium, practice rooms, living conditions. I've always watched videos on it, and I'm just like blown away. I mean, is it really that different?
Well, here's what I would say about the Urigan tournament. Is I always used to tell people when to be a world champion, you only got to beat one Russian. To win the Urigan, you got to beat 5 of them. So that's why it's so damn tough. And you're in their backyard. So not to, give the country of Russia too much credit, but they're damn good at wrestling, and they're deep. So that's what always drove me to go there. Again, talk about just wanting to continually test myself against the best. And so, yeah, as far as conditions, in all honesty, it wasn't – I mean, let's just put wrestling aside. I loved it. It was like a winter wonderland. Yeah, the streets were ice. Yes, it was freezing. There was some years were better than others, but there's definitely years where, like, if you're not full face cover everything, it's freezing your face off sort of thing. But, I was – but the conditions were fine. No, here's the deal. When you got Wi-Fi and you got a toilet and you have like a let's just call it a buffet, but it's not really a buffet like you think about it. When you have all those things, you got fine conditions. When I first started traveling internationally back in 2006, it was like, you want to go to the bathroom? There's a dirt hole right there. There ain't no Wi-Fi. There's like, you want to send a message to your family? There's an old Mac computer. Remember the Mac computers with the green screen?
Yeah.
And then the letters?
Yeah.
I don't even know how to work them, but they tell you, sit down and type your message. You type it, and they say, okay, it's going to your family. Hey, I mean, not going to my family, So I got to go that trip for me was like, that was tough conditions, So I always used to tease the guys, Jordan Burroughs, I'd always beg him to come to the tournament because of how tough it was. And I wanted, because we were good buddies. And no, it's too cold, too this, too that, too that. I'm like, dude, you don't even know tough conditions, man.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was, as far as the competition goes, it was tough. Like I said, you got to beat 5 of them. And not only do you have to beat 5 of them, you got to beat the ref, and you got to beat the other ref and third ref, because there's 3 different refs all trying to screw you. And I'm not complaining. I'm just like, when I was the development coach for USA Wrestling, one of my biggest message to our guys was like, hey, you need to know that they're not going to treat you fair. Right? So different than maybe the United States where the ref's going to make a bad call. Like, it's going to happen. They're going to purposely screw you. Right? So when you know that and you go into the match with that, like, you're ready to handle and absorb it. Right? And it's not going to emotionally get you down. You're not going to start saying, this ain't fair. Well, no, it's not going to be fair. You know that you may have to score 2 takedowns to score 1. And it's not blatant, like when you hear the Colot stories and stuff like that. I've never experienced anything like that where, you're winning and then they're like, no, you didn't win.
Yeah.
But certainly where you score a takedown and then they bring you up and there's no point scored. They're like, well, I just took the guy down. No. And then they're just making stuff up. They smack your hand while you're on top trying to turn a guy, and then they give him 2 points, cost you 2 points. And you're like, well, there's no cautions. What are you talking about? Caution 2 points. So you deal with it, So.
What were the crowds like?
Really good. Really good. It was only actually like a half of an arena. I don't even know if you call it an arena. So yeah, it was kind of like a half an arena, and definitely for the finals, they were packed. And let's see, I lost in the finals twice, right? Yeah, twice. So.
I know I saw Flo did a documentary of the Eureka a few years ago where Bader went over there, and he did one of those ice deals where he jumped in the lake. Yep. Did you ever do any of those? Or you probably done the polar plunge at Iowa too, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I always wanted to do that, but when I went over there as a coach, for whatever reason, it was closed down or something was going on. But as an athlete, you just don't have time. You don't have free time, if that makes sense. I've traveled all over the world and wrestled a lot of different places, and people are like, "Oh, that must be awesome." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, it's cool, but like, do you think I went and saw any of the sights? Like, I showed up. I went to like a sweaty wrestling room that's just nastier than your wrestling room you got at your high school. I got on. They don't have treadmills, so I got on some pedal bike. And then I walked through the dingy part of town to get back to the hotel, and then we wrestled at an arena, and then we went home. So yeah, I never got to do that. It's actually right next to the arena that you wrestle in. Basically, you've got an arena, the little sauna place, a bridge, and then your hotel. And I just never had time. Like, I would wrestle, and the next day would be on a flight leaving. You never had like a day where I was like, oh, hey, what should we do today? So.
Gotcha. Business trips. Makes sense.
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much.
Being a two-time World Cup champ, a Pan American Games champ, what was it like being on the top of the podium representing your country with our national anthem playing?
I'm gonna give you my honest answer. It was good, but it wasn't enough. So, again, you can see that I'm kind of a sick person a little bit. It was good, but to me, it was like, it's the Pan Am Games. It's the Olympic Games, So it was great, and I had to beat some good guys to win that bracket actually during the games. So, I mean, it was cool, but like I don't know. I'll tell you a story. I haven't told this story before, so you guys are getting an original story out of me, okay? So I grew up, and I was how I was raised was like, you don't celebrate, right? Like, you're on to the next thing. So I was raised that way. And I always kind of taught myself, because what's the big thing when you win the Olympic Games? What do people do? They get the flag and they run around with it, right? So what's my dream been my whole life is to get the flag and run around with it and have the opportunity where I could celebrate, right? Because at the end of the day, like, and again, this is the sick way that I was brought up, and how I thought was like, when I won, but I didn't win the Olympic Games, so like I don't get to celebrate yet, right? I won the NCAA title, but it's not the Olympic Games. I don't celebrate because I'm going back to work. As soon as I'm gonna get off this mat and going right back to work, right? So to me, it was like, at the Olympic Games, I will celebrate, right? And as soon as I got done, I walked off the mat of winning the Pan Am Games, and I'm getting ready to walk, like I'm off the mat already, and they hand me a flag, and they're like, take it. And I'm like, no. And they basically gave me the eyes, like, go up there with the flag now, So I was like, all right. So, I mean, but it kind of killed me inside a little bit, because yes, it was great. And yes, obviously when you look back, you're grateful, and you're proud of what you did. Right. But in that moment, being the competitor I was like, this ain't the Olympic Games. I shouldn't have this flag right now, which is why I walked out in the middle of this thing. I held it up and I walked off, so I did what they asked, but I was like, I'm not celebrating. I'm not going to run around this arena with it, So that's not to say that it's right or wrong. That's just how I was, so.
Well, one of the questions we like to ask people at the end, and I'm not asking you right now, but we will later, is what's your favorite quote? I'll tell you, for a long time, my favorite quote was a Brent Metcalf quote, and it was, I might screw it up, but it's something like, I never want my opponent to see me celebrating, because it's not, then he'll think that me beating him, like I think that was a big deal, or something like that.
Bingo.
I was like, that's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, bingo. Hey,
Right.
mental warfare, man. These, I tell our guys all the time, half the battle or more than half the battle is that right there, man. Okay? So you walk on that mat, if that guy you're wrestling doesn't think he can beat you, he's already lost, right? And you can do a lot of that with your results and the type of wrestling that you have, and you're going through and just running through people. I mean, vast majority of guys you're going to wrestle are going to see that, and they're not going to want to wrestle you, right? So, I don't know. Again, there's a lot there.
I love it.
So, Coach, I was fortunate enough to be able to take my son to watch you wrestle. I think it's like 2016. It was in Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
Yeah, the Agon, right? Pico.
Yeah. Yes, Pico match. So, yeah, and my son, it was great. All the great matches that whole week or that whole night out there. But post match with Pico, it was the first time I've ever seen you kind of a little mad. I'm assuming he wasn't asking you where to go out to eat at Iowa City or anything like that before the match ended. What happened? What words were exchanged?
Again, this was years ago, but how I remember it going down. So you got to know there's some dynamic there. So he's the young buck, and I'm getting to be the old buck a little bit, right? So you got that coming through. So there was a lot of – that's what brought maybe tension to the match. So beforehand, we were always fine with each other, but just the naturalness of me being the current guy and him being this super young high school kid who thinks he should be the guy, right? And everyone's kind of pampering him like he is the guy, right? So that maybe is where all the tension starts. But I think the response to that was because I'm not big on that, but I think in that moment, when the match got over, he said something like, you didn't do anything, or like, you're stalling, or he said, you know what I'm saying? Something like that. Mm. And I don't remember exactly what I said during my little microphone thing, but basically I was like, dude, you didn't take a shot. Like, don't tell me that I'm stalling, or, don't tell me like, take more shots when you don't do anything. The whole match was, so I don't know. So yeah, that's kind of what I remember of it, was that there was just some chippy talking, and then you give me a microphone. So I guess that was my platform to talk back, I guess.
Well, I don't think I helped later on. After the meet was done, my son wrestles for Young Guns. So we were waiting around to visit with Jody and get some pictures with Jody. And Kemmer was going to be going to Iowa. He just committed. So he just on there. And I don't recognize people in their civilian clothes. When you're all in your but you look different, when you meet someone in person, right? So we got done taking pictures with Kemmer and Jody, and things are really cool. We're looking out for other Iowa wrestlers coming through and everything. And this guy comes down and goes, "Hey, do you want to take a picture with your son with me?" I go, "I don't know who you are." It was Pico.
Oh, yeah?
He got so mad, he just walked off. He said a couple words to me and walked off. I'm like, all right.
That's what you get, man. You don't volunteer yourself in for pictures. Come on. You got to learn how to play cooler than that, dude.
Well, I didn't know who he was. I'm notorious for knowing people outside of their, So, yeah, so I don't that was a picture that never got to us. So. Now I think he'll come back to Iowa because between you putting the beat down on him and me humiliating him, not knowing who he was. Yeah.
Well, he's actually a pretty good kid. I've gotten to know him outside of that event. Absolutely, he's a good kid. Obviously, wish him well. I hope that he can start winning these fights and not getting knocked out, man. So it's kind of like getting thrown in a headlock. I don't know much about UFC, but what I'm guessing is that it's like if you can go the whole time, you got a chance to win. But you get hit just right. It's like getting hit in a headlock, man. Anyone can beat you. They get you just right. So
yeah, it's that's a different breed of person that can step in an octagon knowing someone else has bad intentions for you and wanting to endure that much time.
Yep.
So Brent, you accepted the position of assistant coach at Iowa State in 2017. So you've been there a couple of years now. How was the transition from athlete to coach for you?
It smooth, I guess. I mean, the thing is as you, at least in our system, as I was an athlete, you're selfish and you're worrying about yourself, but at the same time, you're still bringing up. So every time there's a recruiting class that comes in, you're still working with those guys and kind of bringing them up, if that makes sense. So through that, you're kind of learning how to deal with different sort of guys. You learn how to coach, right? Now it's a different role because at the end of the day, you're not the coach, but you're spending time with the guys. And by that, I mean they're college guys and kind of bringing them up, right? So it was natural. It was something, obviously, I love the sport of wrestling. It's my greatest passion in the entire world. So, yeah, I mean, I guess the first year I was the volunteer assistant, and then, well, however it played out, and then I became the assistant coach. So the only adjustment was just the recruiting angle, right? So that was probably the only thing, is kind of learning that and learning, I don't know. Let's just say I'm not that old, but the kids operate differently, right? Kids want a text message rather than phone call, or kids want to, I don't have a Snapchat yet, but from what I understand is I'd be better off sending them a Snapchat than I would be a text message, So just kind of learning those things and learning what these kids like and what, not that it's about that. But I've kind of found my groove there, really enjoyed kind of the developing relationship with these guys and really getting to know them, and seeing if they're a right fit for our program and vice versa, if we're a right fit for them, so that was really the only thing that I just was maybe left field, because when you're an athlete, you're not doing anything like that, maybe you're around on recruiting trips, but that's just like saying hi and high fives and stuff, so.
Sure. And so this is kind of a follow-up back to where we were talking about Virginia Tech a little bit. Kevin Dresser came in after Brands at Virginia Tech. Is that?
Yeah.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And now you guys are working together. And I say this sort of tongue-in-cheek, but any hard feelings there? Was there ever any like ribbing, like, dude, why didn't you stick around for me? Or any discussions like that?
No. So there's a whole backstory there. And, obviously I'm an 18-year-old kid, so who really knows what? I didn't know anything at the time, Obviously when he came in, he tried to get us to stay. And like Jay had said, we were just going. Like there wasn't even a question. You could have floated a money bag, bag full of money in front of us, and it wouldn't have mattered, it was just set, we were going to do it. So, but I think, during that, there was a lot of blame put on Dresser, and that he was responsible for us losing our year eligibility. And, so obviously that was, and I don't know if the outside world knows that, but it was definitely definitely a thing, and I think that there was some tension there. And so that was kind of something that did have to be sorted out. I mean, when he called and I came to visit, I think it was probably the first thing we talked about. I said, hey man, let's talk this through. Like, I didn't necessarily feel that, because I'm an open-minded person, and I'm like, no wrestling coach has the power necessarily to just take a year eligibility. It's got support from the admin, or it's got to come from that way. But either way, So yeah, that was one of the things we kind of hashed out. So it was actually the opposite. It wasn't him giving me a hard time about not staying. It was me giving him a hard time about, hey man, why did we lose our eligibility? So we talked that through, and I think that what he had to say was fair, and it sounded reasonable, like what a reasonable person would do, and it's all good, So yeah, I guess that's that story.
So 2017 rolls around, and you get a call to go back to, or to join Coach Dresser's crew at Iowa State, right?
Yep.
Once again, you guys kind of same situation where you came back into Virginia Tech, you came into Iowa. You're going to have to rebuild the program the way it looks,
Yeah.
What was the plan, with I think there's like 3 or 4 of you guys, Derek St. John, you, Kevin Dresser, and I'm John. Yes. So what was the plan for you guys to overcome this and to start changing? I mean, there was a whole, I don't want to say a personality change or the way they looked at wrestling again in Iowa State. So what did you guys have to overcome with that?
It was actually, probably one of the better choices I ever made was to come here because, when I kind of look back at it, and let's say I step into a program, I don't know, let's just pick Ohio State, Penn State, right? Like let's say out of college, that's where I go when I begin coaching. That's already established, and you've maybe already got their mojo. They've got things sorted out, and you kind of just file in, and then you add to the piece of the puzzle, right? Well, what's been so awesome about this is that we're literally building it from the ground up. I mean, I think when we came, they're like 52 ranked in the country, something like that. So you talk about adjustments, you talk about learning. I mean, there's obviously, when you become a coach, there's a lot more than just the wrestling aspect. There's probably, way more than just the wrestling. If all there was wrestling, it'd be a heck of a job, But anyways, coming in forced me to learn all this stuff, forced us to, and, thank God Dresser had done it already at Virginia Tech. So it's basically just following his blueprint, and what I give him so much credit for is what, and I'm still young, but I was young coming in, and in my head, I'm like, oh, this is how we do it. We do this, we do that. And sure enough, we matched ideas a lot of times, but a lot of times we didn't. But sure enough, it was like, oh, when I can look back 3 years later, I'm like, oh, now I see the process. I see what we went through together and maybe what has happened. And it was an unbelievable, growth area for me as a coach, to go through that, and obviously to have Coach Dresser as a mentor and a boss, right? And help, obviously he took the horns and he guided us through that. And it's good. I think we're in really good position now. Again, is it enough? Of course not. Of course we're continuing to want more and want more, but we're in a position now where, and I guess the easiest way I could say it is when I remember when I first came in to practice, it was like I felt like I had to constantly not be yelling at guys, but constantly be like correcting and like, hey, like hustle, like simple things like, hey, get off your butt, or like just like simple things like that, where I'm just constantly coaching the whole time. And now it's getting to be where I can sit back at practice and, like they say with old Gable, like I can sit back and eat popcorn and watch and enjoy because the hustle's there. No one's on their butt. People are running back to the middle of the center. Those sorts of things are just happening, so practice is becoming more entertaining now, just for the fact that they're on board, they're getting it, and we got to grow, we got to develop as a team.
I think it's really clear to anyone paying attention that you guys are doing a really good job at building it. I was just going to Google it real quick, but I'm not going to find it quickly. But I remember a few years back, maybe even as long ago as when you were competing, I can't recall, there was an Iowa State, and it's probably better not to call out his name anyway, but like Iowa State, maybe 197-pounder or maybe even heavyweight, who I remember he took a knee during a match at the NCAA tournament. I remember watching that, and I'm just like, the culture, it's just clear. I just bring that up in that it's clear that the culture has changed and that things have definitely been building in the right direction there. So.
Yeah, thanks. Well, like I said, it's good. We're excited about this year, and as always, I want more.
Yeah.
Always want more, but
sure.
It's coming from them now, which is important, right? So it doesn't matter how much coach wants. Doesn't matter what. If I leave practice every day unsatisfied, the change occurs when they leave practice unsatisfied, right? Or they leave practice hungry and wanting to make those corrections, right? And I'm just there as a toolbox for them,
Sure. If you don't mind, Brent, let's talk just a little bit about kind of how last season went. And of course, we all I say we all, it was much bigger disappointment for the wrestlers, but anyone in the wrestling community, or really maybe anyone in the community, was super disappointed at the fact that they didn't get to finish their season. But sort of how did last season go? And then what are your thoughts in terms of how the team's going to be shaping up for this upcoming season?
Last year was obviously a bummer, but the biggest bummer I think for us is that when you're building a program, you want the end of the year test, the barometer, right? To say, hey, where are we really at? Last year not last year, but the year before we were 16th in the country, right? So as you're coaching, you're kind of evaluating to see as it's going. It's like, hey, are we a top 10 team? Are we scratching that yet? Are we sniffing that yet? And we really felt like we were. I think we ended the season like 9 or 10 ranked, but rankings, I mean, what are rankings, right? Yep. So that was really the bummer for us, is that you want to kind of prove that you're doing that, and it helps for your team too, especially when you sit up there and you preach about that they're doing the right things. And then when they can go and have the success that they've earned, it helps you really keep the ball moving. So that was, for me, at least as a coach, one of the frustrating things is that we didn't really get to have that the barometer to see really where we were at. But it was a good season. Obviously, had some young guys that excited. You got David Carr. Obviously, what he did, he put an unbelievable season together. And I would say that there was growth in every level. I'm not going to walk through our whole lineup, but you got guys. How many guys we had the Big 10 or Big 12 finals? 4 or 5 or 25. I'm not going to count it, but either way, you've got guys in the finals of the Big 12 tournament. Where you're like, hey, this is becoming a tournament where it's us versus Oklahoma State, right? And that's something that we want, something that we talked about, right? So yeah, it was good. I'm just generalizing the season. It was all good. There's a lot of good things, some bad things, right? That definitely weren't good. And I think back to Arizona, the Arizona State, that trip. Injuries hurt us a little bit. It's just part of the gig. But at the end of the day, I think the biggest bummer is not having the NCAA tournament where you can really test yourself and see where you're at, and then go back to the drawing board for next year. So we just been at the drawing board for a long time.
I like it. I'm looking forward to what this next year is going to bring. A couple duels that we're looking forward to. One, we have some area coaches at Wartburg. You guys are going to be taking on Wartburg at your facility, right?
Yeah, hopefully all these are in line. As we talked about, I'm not sure how or what or if these schedules will change or what the heck's going to happen. But, yeah, there should be some really great opportunities to put together some really good in-state wrestling, no doubt.
You guys hit UNI this year?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we wrestle them every year.
Okay.
As I know.
All right. I just know some state schools don't touch each other, so.
Yeah, they're in the Big 12, and I'm not even sure how it's broken down, but I think they're in our little bubble. It's one of the bubbles where the bubble kind of overlaps sometimes, but doesn't overlap. One of them gigs. But
is there any other duels that you're looking forward to this year?
Well, shoot, we had Penn State on the lineup. We were going to go out and wrestle Penn State this year. I know that was going to be big. Obviously, anytime you get to wrestle the University of Iowa, that's a big duel. This year, the biggest thing for us was just, I think, getting us in front of those high-ranked, not just teams, but the individuals, so that the individuals in our teams can go and wrestle some of the best guys and give them opportunities to compete against the best and, obviously get them in a position where they can have what they want at the end of the year, which is NCAA title.
Love it. Love it. Well, we're looking forward to it. We're certainly, like everyone, crossing our fingers that COVID either tapers off or we figure out a way to do it safely because we need a wrestling season.
Yep.
So, Coach, what advice would you give to high school athletes who are looking to try to make it into a D1 level program?
Well, first piece of advice is you got to have good grades. So I always tell kids one things that I make a point of when I do clinics and things to talk about is the importance of your academics. Okay. And not only, and here's how I always say it is the same love and passion and effort that you put into the sport of wrestling every day at practice, you should put into academics. And the reason is, and again, this is just how I was raised, was that if you're going to do something, you do it your best. And the school you just have to do. You can't be a state champion if you're not eligible. And it's not good enough just to get by and get what keeps you eligible. You know, a D+, a C, what keeps you eligible, right? Well, it's kind of like stepping on the wrestling mat and saying, oh, I'm just going to win by one every time. I'm going to choose to win by one. Now, if you get a C, you get a C, you know. But you're going out and you're hitting leg attacks and you just weren't converting, you know. Kind of stay with me here a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So my biggest advice would make school a priority. Regardless of what your career, your wrestling career, when you have a good academic record, that helps us make decisions. So by that, I mean, I'm looking at, let's say, a guy that wants to walk on, right? If your grades are bad and you're going to be, I have to worry about you having a bad grade point or failing out, bringing this team down. I don't know if I'm maybe as open-minded as if you're a great student and you don't have to be a 4.0, right? 4.0s are great, but you don't have to be that. But you got to show, and I got to hear from your coaches that you're a great kid and it's important to you, right? Because that's at the end of the day, that's what you go to college for, right? So that would be number one, is make your academics a priority. So either way, now you're opening that door for yourself. If I look at a kid, he's got a 3.8 GPA or whatever, he's got a good test score, I'm open-minded, right? If you've got a 2.6, I'm making numbers up right now, but if you've got a horrible, I'm probably not even thinking twice, because it's probably not going to work, So that'd be number one. And then number two is just get out and wrestle. Get in front of as many of the best competition that you can. Don't think it's all about winning. There's a lot of these, Super 32 and big national level tournaments that you go to that I may, for example, you're watching the wrestling and the guy that wins the tournament probably isn't a fit for us for whatever reason, right? Whatever reason, I'm like, I don't know. The guy's got talent, obviously, but he's not our style, right? But the guy that comes back and gets third, maybe that guy's my style, right? Like, I think that guy's going to fit into our program really good. And it doesn't even, maybe the guy that comes back and gets fifth, right? He got caught and got pinned, So I think the second and last thing I'll leave with is don't worry about necessarily that you have to win everything. And in order to be recruited, you have to be the champion, right? You have to go and compete and show that you love the sport and show that you love competing hard, right? And that doesn't always mean you're going to win. You're not going to win. Sometimes you're going to get caught pinned in a headlock. But what I'm going to watch is, all right, I watched you get pinned in a headlock. No big deal. It happens to everybody, okay? What happens next match? Do you come back strong? Do you come out like a tiger and you're just going after it? And you run away all the way through the bracket and you place high in the tournament and it was a really great showing, or you throw it in? Because when I see a guy throw it in, he's crossed off my list, just in all honesty, because that's, to me, is a huge characteristic. It doesn't matter if you lose, just keep battling. So
awesome advice. Thank you. We'll make sure we're going to share that video. I think there's a lot of people that need to hear that. So,
all right, Coach, we've hit that time where it's sudden death overtime questions. We're going to throw at you left and right. Some have
I'm ready. I'm ready.
All right, man. First question: if you could go back in time, when and what advice would you give yourself?
Oh, I don't know. That's hard. Probably 2009, I would have some advice for myself. And probably 2012, I'd have some advice for myself. So two different versions, but basically it'd be too long-winded, but just adjusting training, being smart with training. I was probably too much of a guy that pounded my head against the wall, and by that I meant just train, and maybe just smarter ways of doing it.
So, Coach, you have a day off. Are you going fishing or are you going golfing? Or if neither, what are you going to be doing?
I'll go when I was competing. How about that?
Sure.
I've got a day off. It depends on what time of year it is. If it's in the fall, I'm probably deer hunting. I like to fish, but I'm not a big fisherman. Nowadays, golfing's probably a little easier for me to go and do. I do enjoy golfing, but I can go and golf in 2 hours. Deer hunting is a huge commitment, and then I gotta be away from family and stuff. So it's harder to do that. So on a simple day off, which I don't get none of those. So.
How about favorite wrestling movie?
Favorite wrestling movie? Oh, it's got to be. I just had a brain fart, man. Come on. There's only one wrestling movie, isn't there?
You talking Vision Quest?
Yeah. There we go. He's climbing up the stairs.
I know if that was with us older timers,
Yeah, there's only one movie. I mean, what other movie is there? That counts.
I'm a fan of Win-Win. That's just dumb. A dumb movie.
Oh, Win-Win?
Yeah.
I've only ever seen one wrestling movie in my life. It was Vision Quest, period.
Okay.
So that's got to be my favorite.
Sure. If you could be any superhero, which one would you be?
Ooh, that's good. That's good. My kids are huge into the Marvel characters. So, I'm going to go with I'm torn. Probably Black Panther, dude. I mean, his technology that he has and like all that. I mean, when you watch that movie, just the Black Panther one, not all the combo ones, like you sit and you're just amazed. You're like, wow, that'd be awesome. So, yeah, I'd be Black Panther, man.
Sure. Good one.
I'm more of a villain. I like my Thanos.
Ooh, I don't like bad guys. No, I'm not a bad guy.
But the
either that or Hulk. I mean, either that or Hulk, I think Hulk's awesome too. But
all right, favorite wrestling match of all time.
My favorite wrestling match of all time, like my personal favorite that I wrestled in.
Let's do that, and then one that you watched.
My personal favorite, I don't know, whatever is hitting my mind. I wrestled Bubba Jenkins at Carver Hawkeye Arena. He came out and took me to I took myself kind of my back. I hit a leg attack and he got me over. So I'm down like 6-1 or 2 or something like that. And I came back and tech fall pinned him. So, like I said, those are always my goal, right? Tech fall pin.
So this one's not on our list, Brent, but I like to ask, and I know a lot of Iowa guys have good stories about stuff like this. What is the longest live go that you ever wrestled, and who was it against?
Oh, I probably can't remember that statistic. I would have to guess probably my longest go. That's hard because you do a ton of them. You do a lot of them, but I'm going to guess it's with Ryan Morningstar. I'm going to guess we did summer workouts, and one of our summer workouts was you go until your partner quits, right? So your partner actually has to tap and say, all right, I'm done, right? And me and Ryan, you see, we were best buddies, right? We lived together. We were tight. So naturally, and we were ironically paired up that day. The coaches didn't set it up or anything. Naturally, I knew I'm like, neither one of us is giving up. It's just not going to happen. Yeah. It's an ego. It's just your buddy. You don't give up to your buddy, right? I don't know how long it went because I don't really look at clocks while I'm wrestling. It was probably an hour. And it wasn't going to end because the problem is that, the problem with that scenario is a guy can land his belly or vice versa, you don't have to wrestle, but as long as you don't quit, right? So it turned into like MMA is what it turned into, like where I was trying to submit him, like I was choking the crap out of him, and then he'd get loose, and then he'd try to choke me. Like it turned just into MMA because there was just no way. I remember it being so long. I'm like, doesn't matter how many takedowns I score or vice versa. If he scores, like, I'm not quitting. So I actually won. I got him to tap out, but it was a tap out. Like, I think I had him in like a sleeper hold, like bare naked choke, like, you know, and he had to tap because I was going to kill him.
Yeah.
Oh, tap or nap.
Yeah.
All right, Brent, what's your favorite food? And when Rob and I go over to Cyclone Country to watch Jillian Broderson wrestle this year, where should we go out for dinner?
All right, my favorite food. I got a combo. I love like Chinese and sushi and all that stuff. I'll just pick that. I like everything, but that's probably my favorite nowadays. Used to be like the steak and taters and stuff, but now I'm probably more into the rice and sushi and such. Where you should go, it depends on what your appetite is. We actually have a sushi place in town now that's good. Before, like, Hy-Vee was your best option. So if you're into that, we've got one. But my sleeper pick is going to be, you talking about nice, like a nice dinner?
Yeah. We're going to have our red and gold gear on, so you can't be too nice. You tie.
Yeah, say Aunt Maud. See, I'm more like a fine dining guy, right? So you've got like your Hickory Park and stuff. That don't do it for me, you know? I don't know why people come for miles. Not that I hate it or anything, but it doesn't make any sense. It's just like a fast food barbecue joint. But provisions, the cafe, like if you're at lunchtime, the cafe's got the best lunch in the world. And then at Mods is for like, you know, if you guys want to go on a dinner date together. Really good tuna steak.
Weird, and I don't think Rob dresses up that well, so.
Yeah.
Okay, who is the greatest U.S. Olympic wrestler of all time?
Greatest U.S. Olympic wrestler of all time. I'm going to say John Smith, even though I think statistically it's Baumgartner, ain't it? But it's got to be Smith.
Yeah.
So it's got to be Smith. Period.
Sure.
Favorite football team?
Favorite football team? Go Pack Go.
Who do you have this year for this upcoming Olympic trials? Cox or Snyder?
Who's going to win the match?
Yeah.
Ooh. All right. This is I haven't put any thought into this, but I'm only making this pick because, like, if you made me hit a button really fast, I'd have to do it, and I'd pick Cox. The only reason I pick Cox is because every time I think he's not going to win, he wins. Yeah. So I'm just picking Cox for that reason, I guess.
Sure.
All right. Favorite vacation destination?
My favorite vacation. Well, it depends on – I'm going to just say my vacation with my wife, and that would be Maui. I've been to Maui a couple times. I love it there. It's unbelievable. But any beach vacation, I'm a beach vacation guy. If I'm going on my own, I'm probably going to the mountains, the elk hunt, or Alaska.
Nice.
So I'm gonna screw you up, Jay, and I'm gonna ask another question. Brent, a couple of years ago, I guess it wasn't this past season because we didn't get freestyle and Greco, but last freestyle and Greco season, we were there, and I noticed that you and Dylan Carew and Derek St. John were all refereeing, which I thought was super cool. Is that a normal thing? Do you guys go sort of volunteer at the Freco State tournament most years, or like how did that end up happening?
Well, I'd like to lie to you and say, yeah, that's organic, but they require us to go to it. Oh. But in fairness, if anyone did ask me, like, hey, you want to come and do this tournament, I would probably do it once or twice. It's fun. I enjoy the heck out of it. It's a ton of fun. But part of basically, and a lot of high school coaches learn this, like if you want to go to Fargo as a coach, you have to build up a certain amount of referee points or tournaments or whatever. And the college coaches, they make us go to the state tournament so that we can then be coaches at Fargo. So that's kind of how that setup works. But I remember the first year they told me that, I was kind of bitching and moaning in my head, but I ended up loving it. I mean, it's really cool. It's really fun. And it gives you like the other side of the token too, because I can't tell you how many times I'm sitting there. I'm supposed to be this guru on wrestling, right? And I'm like, I don't know how to call that. Like I don't know what the answer is. So I'm just like, put some points up,
Yeah. See if they white paddle you or not.
All right. Coach, we always end the questions in our interviews with, what is your best quote?
Mine would be a good person. And that's a quote that's what my mom said to me every day as I walked out of the door from school. So that's something I've always kind of lived by.
Love it. Love it. Well, Coach, we really appreciate your time. We're looking forward to watching your team this year, and it's going to be an exciting year.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you having me.
All right. Thank you for tuning in. Please share this podcast with your friends. Give us a like and a follow on Facebook and Twitter at QCA Wrestle. And keep an eye out for more QCA wrestling content coming soon.